we have that breaking news that Lord Peter Mandelson has this afternoon been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Without further ado, Mark White, if anyone is just tuning in, fresh home from work tonight, what on earth have they missed?
Well, they have missed Peter Mandelson being formally arrested by the Metropolitan Police. Detectives who were at his home address in Camden in North London. We can show you these images. Here he's being led from the property by two plainclothes detectives, one in front, one behind. He's then placed into the back of that unmarked police vehicle and has been taken off to an undisclosed police station, likely to be in central London, where he will be questioned over whatever period of time he remains in custody. Now, you'll remember that it was just over 2 weeks ago that the Metropolitan Police announced that they had begun searches at Lord Mandelson's home, both in Camden in London, but also in Wiltshire, those two homes, detailed searches to gather evidence on allegations of misconduct in public office, on allegations of providing insider information to the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. And so all that time, it's a very significant period of time, they have been searching, collating, sifting through the evidence that they've found. In particular, of course, they're looking at electronic evidence, such as his old laptops, mobile phones, looking for old communications, something that may corroborate and back up evidence that has been released by the United States Department of Justice with regard to the Epstein files. We know these millions upon millions of files that have just been dumped out into the public sphere by the Department of Justice that everybody has been pouring through ever since, that have come up with some very disturbing potential allegations against Peter Mandelson stemming from his time as Business Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister. And those allegations against him that will form, it seems, part of the ongoing police investigation are misconduct in a public office. He's accused of leaking confidential government documents and market-sensitive information to Jeffrey Epstein, providing insider information. It's alleged that he informed Jeffrey Epstein about a €500 billion EU bailout, and also advised him on political strategies and shared details about government financial plans. And there are also allegations of financial irregularities, reports that Epstein made multiple payments to Peter Mandelson, including $75,000 in 2003, 2004, and then $10,000 again in 2009. All of that, when we go forward, may form the basis of charges that could be brought in a criminal court. It may be, though, that further down the line, as the police investigate, then some of these charges might not follow. They might feel either they don't have enough information or there's no criminal offence that has been committed. We should add throughout this, in this country, there's a presumption of innocence. We know he's a high-profile figure. We know, as with Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, so much of the allegations that have already been given quite a public airing. But with Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, as with Peter Mandelson, there's a presumption of innocence that until and unless he's convicted in a court of law, then he should be presumed to be innocent. And we always have to be just very careful in how we couch everything around this. It is a very, very case that, well, a very controversial case that is alive. Everyone is aware of it because it's all over the media and has been for a number of weeks there. But the fundamentals of the way in which our criminal justice system work is to ensure that whoever it might be that is facing criminal charges has got to have a fair trial at the end of this process. So
Let me just ask you this.
Worth caveating always that he denies all of the allegations. Whatever has been said, whatever documentation is supposedly out there, he denies it. We've got to just add that.
And I've got to say as well, obviously we are sensible, professional individuals, so we will, of course, abide by those rules. But when you do take a cursory glance at social media, it's like the Wild West out there. People are saying all kinds. So how come we have to abide by a set of frameworks and many people elsewhere choose not to?
Well, they do have to. And this is the thing. You can't say anything anywhere in the public sphere that could get you into trouble in terms of a contempt of court, some other infringement of the law. Being online and posting on social media is no protection. We've seen so many high-profile cases, in recent months that show us that even if you're online and you're posting information that, a magistrate, a police officer, whoever it might be, construes as a criminal offence, you could be prosecuted, you could potentially be jailed. So they might be saying this online, but it doesn't mean that they should be saying this, or indeed that they are safe from saying this. Mm-hmm. But just going back, the thing that interests me about this case, I'm putting all the caveats out there about, he denying it, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor denying it, is you've got two individuals, high-profile individuals, that are now facing separate criminal investigations, but there is one common link, and that is the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein and the information that they're alleged to have provided to him. Now, as far as Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is concerned, there's so much in the way of salacious allegations out there that it's very, very difficult for the prosecutors to actually put before a court and prove, because so much time has passed, and in some cases, it's what one person's word says against another person's word. And the same with Peter Mandelson. There have been allegations about his dealings in the private life with Jeffrey Epstein as well. Very difficult to sort of prove in any court of law whether he was involved in any wrongdoing. What has happened, though, with both these individuals, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, who had become, obviously, for a while, the trade envoy, and then Peter Mandelson as Business Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister, is that they entered into the business world and they dealt, it seems, with an individual in terms of laying an evidence trail. They were sending emails, receiving emails, texts, whatever else they did over communications, it's alleged. And that has provided an avenue in for the investigators in this case to bring potentially charges. So not of the more salacious variety around a lot of the allegations that we're now more than aware of, but of the potential allegations relating to business details. Sounds much more mundane and a bit boring, but actually they're the kind of, or that's the kind of evidence that will provide the authorities, the police in this country, with the kind of evidence that could potentially put before a court at the end of the day.
Mm. Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver. and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Fascinating stuff, how the mighty fall. Mark White, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on that. Ladies and gents, we've got so much more discussion on this topic and much more on this programme. Worry not, but I do just want to cross across the pond right now live to GB News presenter Bev Turner. She's in Washington, D.C. Bev, good evening to you. Astonishing news that we're seeing unfolding on our screens here. Your reaction?
Well, let me tell you what they're saying here in America, Michelle, because there's a feeling of frustration here that we're seeing these Epstein files and nobody in America is being arrested. So the sense here, and lots of broadcasters on American TV are offering these monologues when they're saying, look at what the UK are doing. We've literally had a former prince arrested. We've now had the former ambassador arrested. Why is the USA not doing anything similar? That seems to be the feeling, that actually the UK is moving quicker than other countries on this issue. The guy that used to run Victoria's Secrets, Les Wexner, he appears in the Epstein files in some extremely dubious ways. And it was pointed out this week that actually the US House Oversight Committee did travel to interview Les Wexner, but they traveled to his house in Ohio. They made the effort to go and see him. And those interviews were broadcast, in fact, which I guess is the difference between the UK and the US. We do everything very quietly behind closed doors. They're much more transparent about these conversations. But that gave rise to allegations of, well, hang on a minute. The politicians will literally travel to Les Wexner's house to do this interview, and yet we're having people arrested and taking it more seriously. So there is a big difference, Michelle, in terms of how the US and the UK are handling this story.
Of course, we've got ourselves a new ambassador now, haven't we, Bev? Tell us more.
Yeah, so Christian Turner arrived in town a couple of weeks ago. It's actually his official private welcome reception this evening at the ambassador's embassy. Now, of course, this puts a slightly different spin perhaps on the conversations that might be taking place tonight. But I have met Sir Christian Turner. He seems like a very safe pair of hands. It's a non-political appointment. He's a career civil servant, has worked all around the world on behalf of the Foreign Office. He was about to go and be the ambassador for the UN in New York and got that very last minute call when Peter Mandelson got kicked out of that beautiful house just down the road from where I'm sitting here. So he has some shoes to fill to some extent in that role. He has to become well known in DC in order to open doors here. He has some work to do, but he isn't Peter Mandelson. And frankly, that's going to be the most important thing as he steps out on the beginning of this particular role that he will be taking on with his wife also, who's in town. And as I say, private drinks tonight on his behalf.
Well, enjoy. Beverly Turner, thank you very much for bringing us your insight. And of course, everyone can tune in to your programme later on tonight. Now, I just want to pause for a second and help us all understand what happens next then. If you're just tuning in, you've got Lord Peter Mandelson that's been arrested now by Met Police on suspicion of misconduct in public office. I'm pleased to cross live then to former police officer Graham Wetton. Graham, good evening to you. My viewers who might not be familiar with criminal proceedings, bring us up to speed. He's been arrested on suspicion right now. What are the next steps here?
Yeah, good evening. He'll be taken to a London police station, booked in as any other detainee is. So on arrival at the police station, he's told why he's under arrest. He's told the investigation he's been investigated under. He's then read his rights effectively. He's got a right to have a solicitor. He can appoint his own one if he wants to, or the duty solicitor is provided for him. He has the right to have somebody informed of his arrest. He can do those rights at any time whilst he's been either booked in or at any time whilst he's detained at the police station. He's then likely to be searched and his personal property is recorded, documented, put in a bag and sealed. So mobile phones, cash, wallets, belt, ties, anything like that will be taken off him, put in a bag and sealed. Normal practice now in policing, which is different from when I was a custody officer, is they quite often fingerprint, photograph and DNA people and booking them into the police station. So they're kept on file on booking in. Once that's done, if his legal representative isn't at the police station by that time, he's likely to go and be put in a cell. And he will wait there until his legal representative arrives. Then he'll be given time to have a private consultation with his representative. Once that's finished, if the investigating officers are ready to do the interview, he will then be taken out and interviewed, and that will be recorded.
And just give us a flavour. I mean, are there any kind of VIP treatments available? Is there any special suites on offer, or is it one size fits all?
It's very much one size fits all. A cell is a cell. They're exactly the same. There's no priority cells or exclusive cells. Every cell is the same. He'll go into a cell, the door will be shut, and he'll stay in there until his legal representative arrives. So there's no special treatment at all. Maybe offered a cup of tea or coffee in a polystyrene cup. Food if he wants it, which would be a microwave meal. No special treatment whatsoever. Every detainee gets treated exactly the same: food, water, drinks. And as I said, legal representation.
And how long are you allowed to keep someone in custody for in this kind of situation?
24 hours initially. They can then go to the superintendent and ask for an extension of another 12 hours. At that point of time, so after 36 hours, you have to go before a magistrate at court and ask for what's called a warrant of further detention. So initially, it's 24 hours. His detention gets reviewed after 6 hours by the inspector who's on duty. Then at 9 hours, and if his detention is still warranted, and the investigating officer have to almost justify that to the inspector who's conducting the review under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, then the detention is continued. At some point now, I'd expect him to be interviewed tonight, but this is a very late arrest, 5 o'clock in the evening. So normally we don't interview people in the early hours of the morning. So what would normally happen in many cases is once you get to about 11 or 12 o'clock, if there's no likelihood of you doing a very quick interview and then releasing that person, they will be put into a rest period for about 8 hours, and they will then be interviewed the following day. So there's a possibility on this occasion that he could end up staying overnight.
Interesting. One of my viewers, Cecilia, just said, can you just ask a question? Why did the arrest of this individual seem to take so long? Obviously, I've got to, again, point out innocent until proven guilty and all the rest of it, but just in terms of procedurally and all the rest of it.
Different type of case. I know people are getting confused because it's the same offence, misconduct in public office. So it sounds very similar. But again, Andrew was a trade envoy. Lord Mandelson was the ambassador. So they got access to different types of paper, different periods of time. So I know it's the same sounding offence. The investigation team have had different things to look at, different avenues to look at, different contacts to look at. So it's taken slightly longer or slightly different periods of time for both of them, albeit it sounds like exactly the same thing you're investigating. So there will be similarities there, but very different pathways. And the police have to follow the evidence trail down whatever pathway it takes them. So that's probably why it's taken slightly longer and slightly different circumstances. But ultimately, we're coming towards a similar sort of conclusion. So the investigation is likely to continue for a significant period of time. We're talking about documents and emails that are going back years in both cases. So there's an exceptionally long period of investigation and review they've got to do on all the documents.
Interesting stuff. That's former police officer Graham Wetton there. Thank you very much for helping our viewers understand a little bit more of what is happening. Now, I do have a panel tonight with me, ladies and gents, believe it or not. They're sitting here waiting very patiently indeed to give their 2 pence worth. I've got Layla Cunningham alongside me and I've got Barry Gardner. And what I'm going to do actually is I shall in a second go to a break, and when I come back I will throw it open to these two for their opinions as well. I do just want to tell you, many of you, of course, will be familiar with the question of what was known and when at the time of the appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador. Well, we now know that the first tranche of these documents will be made available early March. I will have my popcorn ready for that one, I can tell you that for free. What on earth is going to be unveiled there? But I shall be back in just a second